Well, welcome to Ravensdale Bible Academy. Today's course is Think Again Christian Fact Checking. And today's lesson is on the slide you see behind me, which is the democratic idea of growth is rising homelessness, increased welfare, higher taxes, job losses, closed businesses, and violence. So obviously this slide is being sarcastic. This slide is saying that the only things that Democrats are good at is actually making things bad. So growth is sarcastically in the wrong direction, right? So that's a very important question for us to ask because politically, we see two sides of the spectrum. Typically, we see the Republicans and the Democrats, and they're constantly presenting the same economical arguments. And so it's very important for you to start learning how to process this information, to fact check, to see, well, whose policies do you see as being either the cause or the effect or the results of the bad things that we see on our streets. During the President Trump's years, he kept referring to cities in America, the worst cities in America, as run by Democrats. And that's exactly what the slide mockingly suggests, is that cities run by Democrats have bad growth. And so let me explain that a little bit. Typically, when we look at states or we look at cities, we look at a state like California, who would have a liberal Democratic governor. We would look at the cities like San Francisco that would have local Democratic mayors, local Democratic Congress people. Look at cities like LA, same thing, mayors. When we go from major city to major city, Detroit, Chicago, Baltimore, New York, St. Louis, when we look at these cities, we tend to see some similarities. And the similarities are, well, actually, these cities have been run by Democrats. They've been run by Democrats for a long time. And so the question would be, if Democrats are so kind, so loving, and their policies work, then why do we only see growth in a negative way? Shouldn't they be solving these problems? That's the question. That's the million-dollar question. That's what we're asking ourselves. That's what we're trying to fact check today. So this is important for us because you're going to vote, and you're going to vote for the people who are going to make the policies that really are going to affect your city, your community, your state, and ultimately your nation. And so you want to make sure that you're making good choices. Well, again, the question is the problem that we see a Democratic problem? Is the problem a Republican problem? Hey, is it a personal problem? Look, the problems in the world are not going to be solved, or the problems in the United States can't be solved by politicians. They're individual problems, right? And so we definitely have a different mindset when it's Republican, Democrat in that regards too. Very basically, let me illustrate this way. A typical Democrat sees a problem, sees a homeless person, right? Sees somebody on welfare, sees somebody without a job, and their compassion and their desire to help that person means give them a fish, give them some food, give them some money. They need it, so give it to them, right? That seems compassionate, that seems loving, it seems kind. The Republican mindset in the same scenario sees somebody who's hungry, sees somebody who is homeless and needs a job, and has a different mentality. Instead of giving that person a fish, the Republican, the conservative says, look, let me show you how to fish so that you can go get your own fish, so that you can have fish every day, so you can have fish anytime you want. And so those are the two positions. Teach a man how to fish, and he can feed himself for a lifetime, or give the man a fish, and he eats for a day. What's better? What has a longer lasting effect? You can feed me today, but what about tomorrow, the day after, the week after, the month after, the year after? Who's going to continue to feed me, to support me? So that's what we're looking at. Well, again, we want to know what the Bible has to say, because when we fact check, not only are we looking at this from facts and logic, but we look, what does the Bible say about meeting this need, right? The Bible is not silent. In fact, John 12:8 reminds us, Jesus says that we will always have the poor amongst us. We will always have the poor. Now that's very important for us to anchor in on. I used to work at Seattle's Union Gospel Mission, and so I spent a lot of time working with the homeless, working with those in greatest need. And one of the things you learn is, you know what? It's not going to be possible to resolve all homelessness, all poverty. There will always be people that will be in need. With that being said, the Bible tells us, well, what do we do when we have people in need? Leviticus 19, long time ago, told us in the Old Testament that, look, when you're a business owner, when you have a field, when you have a crop, you're supposed to allow the poor people to do what's called gleaning. That means they could go to the corners. So just imagine here's your rows, right? Your rows of your crops. And the gleaner was allowed to come and take food from the corners. Also, any food that dropped on the floor. So you could imagine the scenario of, here's my farm, and I worked so hard for it, me and my family and my workers, and we sweat and we toiled and we prayed for rain, not too much rain, enough rain. We prayed for sun, not too much sun, enough sun. And now comes the harvest, and then guess what? Here come these gleaners, and they can just pick up stuff that falls. That's right, because the Lord has instilled in us a pattern to take care of the needy. It's important for us to take care of the needy. But the difference is, do we do that by mandate, by force, or do we do this as a free will expression of our love to the Lord? And our love for the Lord means that we're going to be generous and giving to those in great need. Again, the Bible talks in James 1:27 that there's no greater expression of religion than helping the widow, the orphan, and the poor. The widow, orphan, the poor. But we have to be careful. We have to be careful with building an economic system that creates and builds a community of non-workers, right? The Bible also says, he who doesn't earn for his family is worse than an unbeliever. So if you're able, you're fully capable of working, then you should work. You should provide. Not only is it your duty, it's a privilege. It's a privilege for me to provide for my family. It's one of the greatest joys I have is working for my family. Teaching people, again, how to fish, how to work, then becomes my joy. And I love doing that as well. Now, here's again, back to our questions. The Democratic idea of growth, is their idea worse than the Republican idea? Well, let's take a look at Trump's ideas. What he said was, look, if you look at the worst cities in America, they're run by Democrats, which then is his way of proving that Democratic philosophies, Democratic policies don't work. Is that a true statement? Well, when fact-checked by BBC, by Fox News, that's what the statistics say. We see that Trump was right. How was he right? Well, let's take a look at some of these statistics. So when we look at something like violence, right? Violence. We see that the cities with the most overall violent crime in America are run by Democrats. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia, Memphis, Detroit, Dallas, Phoenix, and Baltimore. Not only are they run by Democrats, but they've been run by Democrats for a long time. A long time. And so the question is, look, year after year, these politicians run for office and say that they have the solution to the problem. And it looks like, well, maybe they are the problem. One of the other things we see is here's another list of cities with the most violent crime per 10,000. So, maybe it's just a per capita thing, right? It's like, well, of course, the really, really big cities are going to have the most crime, and they just happen to beat Democrats. Like, no, it's the same. When we look at violence on this chart as well, Memphis, Tennessee, St. Louis, Detroit, Baltimore, Springfield, Missouri, Little Rock, Stockton, California, Cleveland, San Bernardino, California, Oakland, California, all but one are Democratic run, and the other one is run by a independent. So it looks like the problem with that we're seeing with a lot of these cities has something to do with the policies that the liberal Democrats are running. When we look at homelessness, the 5 urban areas containing the cities with the largest homeless population: San Jose, California; San Diego, California; Seattle, Washington; Los Angeles, California; New York City. Also, Portland, Oregon's one of them. And me, having grown up in LA and working in Seattle with the homeless, I can tell you that this is exactly true. And it's a problem that perpetuates itself. So think about it this way. If you had a city that says, look, if you're homeless, come here. Well, wouldn't they go? If you had a city that says, look, if you're homeless, come here and we'll feed you and we'll give you money and we'll give you shelter, and heck, we'll even give you drugs. We'll give you the needles for the drugs. Doesn't it stand to reason that if you keep giving fish all day long, every day, that they're going to keep taking the fish? And so that's how we want to kind of understand the process. We want to understand how this works. If you have a problem and you just keep throwing money at it year after year, like homelessness, the only thing that's happened in homelessness in the cities that have done the most financially and service-wise has been an increase in homelessness. That should tell you all you need to know right there. But we see again the Democrats' idea of growth is, okay, let's solve all these problems with more taxes. We need more money. As someone who ran an organization, as the CEO of an organization, if I had come to every problem to the board and said at every problem, well, the solution's more money. Well, the solution's more money. Well, the solution's more money. That is a very weak, lazy, non-plan way of going about solving problems. Problems are more complex than just money. Problems are way more complex than just throwing money. Look at the areas that we push and funnel a lot of money. Education. The more money you push to education, education hasn't gotten better. Homelessness. The more money you put to homelessness, homelessness hasn't gotten better. Welfare, same thing. It's not a solution that just requires money. The proof is in the pudding. The states that have the most liberal programs that are giving away are the states that are going bankrupt. These states, they can't make it. So as a business, they're failing businesses. One of the other things we look at is some of the Democratic policies, the policies that they like to talk about. Right now, we just saw a great example of it. President Joe Biden just took over, and one of his first moves was to stop the building of the Keystone Pipeline. And immediately 12,000 jobs are lost, and up to 83,000 jobs are going to be lost. And the answer to that is, well, but when we do the next thing, there's going to be millions of jobs. Well, listen, elephants fly. I can say anything I want, but is it true? Well, if I were to use our logic train, if I were to use our fact check, and I were to go into all the cities in America where liberals run them, where Democrats are the mayors and the governors, and I were to say, hey, based upon your policies, do we see job growth or job closures based upon your principles? We're not going to see job growth. We're going to see job loss. We're going to see job closures. That's pretty consistent, pretty consistent. Same thing with welfare. We always see an increase in giving away the fish. Just give away more fish, give away more fish. If you haven't properly taught people how to work, how to earn, how to fend for themselves, then they will never learn how to fish. So we need to teach people how to help themselves. Right now, California is the 6th largest economy in the world. Think about this for a second. In the whole world, California, as a business, is in 6th place in earning money. And right now, they're losing $54 billion. How is that even possible? How is it possible? Well, it's possible because the democratic idea of growth is only found in growing in negative ways. So before you consider following liberal democratic policies, think again, Christian.